Hi everyone, welcome to lesson 13. So in this lesson what we're going to be learning about is unique or custom data types. And this is kind of an extension of what we did in the last lesson, which was all about writing to a Firebase database with a list. Now, one of the limitations of the list, and we'll use an example here. So let's say, for example, we have a student, and the student has a mother and a father, both of which they want to have on our contact list, and both of them don't have a mobile phone and they're using a landline. That means that when mum puts in a phone number, it will be the same as dad's. Now, the problem with that, with using a conventional list, is that a conventional list in Firebase will not allow a duplicate value to be written in. So you cannot have the same value written more than once. Now, the problem is that that means that we're not going to be able to record the data that we want and have the name associated with the phone number that we want, which creates a problem. So this is what this problem is what custom data types will overcome. All right, so we'll jump across and we'll start to create one and we'll show you how it all works. Okay, so to create one is very simple. We're just going to create, and I'm going to call it contact information. Contact info, okay. And then what I can do is I can add fields. So basically what a custom data type does is it just creates a data type that has fields within a field. Okay, so this time we want to have a name field, and we can just assign, as we would normally, a string, and we're going to create it as a separate value. There is reasons why you might use a list, but in this particular case, the reason I'm doing a single value is because when I set the field, we use it in the field, we can use it as a list where we have multiple values. So we only need to have a single value here. So we want our name and we want the phone number. So I'll just put phone. Okay, and again, I'm just going to put in string for the moment, and there is our data structure all set up. Okay, so once you have that, and the reason why this data structure helps to overcome that problem is because when we're thinking about duplication of data, we are no longer thinking about a single name, comparing names with names, with comparing name and number with name and number. So in the case of the mum and dad example where they both have the same phone number, the record itself is now unique because it has a name and an associated phone number. The number may be the same, but the name is different, so the overall record is different. So that's where this is how you sort of overcome that problem. Now, to set up your Firebase to be able to accept that information is very straightforward. We want to get a list of names and numbers, and we want to choose the data type. So the data type we want to choose is data type. Okay, so that, and then you'll get an option across to the side, which will be your lists of whatever data types you have created. In this case, we've only got the one, so only one thing comes up, so we can click that. Now, one of the things also, just a little annoying little feature of this, not a big deal, but if you come to click the green to create a list and you hadn't already created that already, and you click here, it's going to actually create the field without creating the list. So you actually need to tick that you need a list before you add this information, otherwise you won't be able to get the field that set up that you want. Okay, so we've got our contact info. Okay, and so now we have a field that has two fields within it that are within our Firebase setup. And once we have that, then we can go back to the original stuff we did in the last lesson and set it up so that it works with that back end. So just as a reminder, we have previously how it was set up was that we had a plus button that as soon as the plus button was clicked, we would update an app state data. So that would be a variable list with the name out of the first text field and the contact number out of the second text field, and they are added to the list. Now, this doesn't need to change because we're quite happy for that to continue and for that to be added to a list and then that list to be displayed here. So nothing at all needs to change here. The only thing we actually need to change is when we come to save the information to the database, we just need to change the way that that is set up. But there are a lot of similarities, so we can use a lot of the stuff that's already here. So just again, as a reminder, we have this set up so that we have a loop counter, and that loop counter we set to 0. You should always set your loop counter to 0 as one of the first things you do in your action chain. And the reason for that is just in case the loop counter has been used in a previous event on your app, you want to make sure it's set back to 0. The next step is that once we have our loop counter set to 0, and that will allow us to access each item in a list. So you might remember from the previous lesson that if we have lists with multiple items, they will be associated with a value, which will start with 0, then the next item that's added will be 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, etc. Now, the next thing that we want to do is we want to create the document with the student name. And again, if we were setting this up properly in an actual app, you would probably have a conditional action before this to check whether the name was already in the database to prevent a duplicate record being created. Once you have done that, then we're into the stage of writing our information to Firebase. So again, we have our loop, which was the same as what we had last time, where we have a loop counter coming in at 0, and if it is less than the number of items that is in the list, then it will continue to loop through, and then once it gets to the end of the loop, it gets added a +1, so it goes through, the first time it goes through the loop as 0, then 1, then 2, etc. Okay, so the actual only thing we need to change is the way that the backend call updates the document. Again, we're using the same reference, so the reference is just from the action of creating the field, and I'll just redo it here. One of your action outputs was creating the student name. So if you go back up here just for a moment, cancel. Okay, you should see that this creation of the document we've associated with the name student name that we can then access down here to make sure we have the right record, and we want to click on the reference. So this is the document reference, and from there we then want to update the fields. So we can add all of the fields in and then choose the ones that we want. And the one we want is the contact info, so everything else can go. Okay, and so far everything is exactly the same. The only thing that's different, and just will be coming up in a second. So just a reminder, add to set just allows you to add a new value to the existing list of values. You can also get it to remove that value from the set. You can set a single value, which will replace any values that are there with whatever that value is, or you can delete all materials. So if you're doing something like, for example, updating a document, what you actually have to do is collect all the existing information in your list, delete it, and then rewrite it to the database. Not very convenient, but just the commands that are available. But okay, so we need to add to a set, and as soon as you click add to a set, this is the new bit. What happens is we can choose to set individual fields. So that means we can assign values to the name field and the phone number field. Okay, so they're the only things that are different. Everything else from here is pretty much you've seen before. Okay, so we want it from a variable. The variable that we want to get it from is from our app name, our list of names, however many names that we have, and we want to get it from an item at a specific index. Okay, so we need to select, we don't want first or last, we want a specific index, and we're going to tell them what that index is. Okay, so that index is going to be the loop counter. So as it goes through 0, we're collecting our first item in the list. If it goes through as 1, we're collecting the item at number 1. Okay, so once that's done, we've got that done, and then we just need to do pretty much the same thing with the different app state. So from variable, need to select our different list of items, which would be the phone number, we need to get our item at a list. It's a specific value, and it is the loop counter value. And once we have all that, we should be good to hopefully test this out. So I'm going to reload, and hopefully this will come up relatively quickly. And then we can test it out. Okay, so we have our student name. We'll have Bob today, and Bob has a couple of contacts. One called, again, being very lazy, one called XXXX, and they have the phone number 1111, and we want to add that to our list. Okay, and then we want to add another name, and this is www, and we've got a different number now, and we'll add a third one. Okay, which might be ZZZZ. Okay, so we have our list of contacts, okay, that have been added. Okay, and now we can scroll down and we can click our save button, which will hopefully have collected our information and deposited in our Firebase. So we can go there, we can check out manage our records, and hopefully it should be written in the document and available. Okay, so we have our student records. Let's see. For some reason, Bob hasn't been written, but let's just check if the contact names, the contact info has been. So we can click in here and we have the first name, okay, the first record, cancel, the second record, cancel, and the third record. Okay, so then we're able to add our unique values, and that solves that problem. If I was organized, I would go and fix up whatever's happened to Bob's name. It obviously didn't go in there as we would like, so there's obviously an issue that we need to correct. But won't worry about that today. All right, so hopefully that all makes sense, and hopefully you can now have the ability to create a whole bunch of data. All right, we'll see you in the next lesson. Cheers, guys. Bye.